It's Wednesday, June 18th, 2014, and this is the Product Mentor Talk. Today we're joined by one of our mentors, Cindy Solomon, founder of many, many things. One of the most notable ones is founder of the Startup Product Academy, and she's going to be leading a talk today on creating community for Product Unknown. Very mysterious title, but I know we're going to have a great conversation about that. So just allow me to briefly explain the format to those of you who are maybe joining us for the first time. In the room here, you're seeing participants from the Product Mentor program, mentors and mentees in the current session. Hey guys, wave hi. We can all wave hi. There we go. Yay, yeah, they're alive. So we're going to do, and what the rest of you, if you're not in the Product Mentor program, and you can sign up at theproductmentor.com, if you're not in the Product Mentor program, you're joining us from theproductmentor.com/live or from YouTube, where we're also streaming live. And it's really just open to the wider internet, and you can also submit your questions through Google Moderator. So let me just start out right now, and we'll kind of go around the room doing some quick introductions. And I will start with Corey.
Hi, I am Corey Shatner. I am a product manager at K-12 Student Direct, which is a platform for operating school bookstores.
Okay, cool. Cindy. Hold on, I will try to. There you go. Hold on, Cindy, you muted yourself. There you go. You're good.
Okay. Hi, I am Cindy Faye Solomon, and amongst other things, I host a weekly broadcast called the Global Product Management Talk. I've spoken with over 100 people who are product experts, practitioners, startup founders, thought leaders, and it's available on archives at blogtalkradio.com/PRODMGMTTALK, and they are educational opportunities to listen while you're doing other things. So I'm delighted to be here.
Awesome. And to Lynn.
Hi, I'm Lynn Stabile. I'm an associate product manager at Planned Parenthood, based in New York City, and I work on internal tools for the Federation.
Awesome. Mike? Mike? Your mic's not picking you up. I see the mouth moving, but no sound. Okay, Mike says hi to everybody. And so with that, we're gonna go into, just let me briefly introduce myself. I'm Jeremy Horn, aka the Product Guy, and I'll be moderating the talk this evening. And so, like I said, feel free to join in with the conversation if you're not in the room, and you can do that by going to theproductmentor.com/live, and you'll see the live video stream at the top. And you'll see Google Moderator at the bottom, and you can submit all your questions there. And as the questions come pouring in, I will briefly and from time to time interrupt Cindy so that she can answer your questions as close to real time as possible. When questions are from the room, I'll be handing it over to the mentors and mentees in the program right now. And with all that said, I'm going to hand it over to you, Cindy. Take it away.
Yay! I will share my screen. And here we go. Start screen share. Okay. So yes, the title is Creating Community for Product Unknown. And I'm delighted to be presenting this and participating in Jeremy's community. Jeremy's certainly been an inspiration and a mentor to me in starting the startup product communities, which there are now 18 of them worldwide. So I actually go back a while as a woman in tech. I've contributed to a few books around product management, and early on, let's see, I started my first company before I was 30 in New York City, by the way. Previous to that, I sold microcomputers, I wrote about them, I started a newsletter for boardroom reports. And I came out to the Valley at the beginning of the internet, And when Steve Jobs had just come back to Apple, at Apple I did web development. I went on to web authoring software. I worked with small businesses. My husband was a programmer. I ran a development consultancy and did lots of consulting myself. My specialties are, I would say what I've enjoyed the most is the product marketing aspect of technology products. And since I've become a product management educator, as well as an evangelist for product management principles. So the question I have is, why even talk about this? This is a flipped discussion. Rarely do people talk about building a community, and certainly not before the product is known or the product is built. What I find happens all the time is people build a product. I work a lot with startups or early stage companies or new product innovation inside bigger companies. But they always come to me after they have the product. At least they have the idea, they have the vision, they have the whole thought about it, and generally they'll discover that they're in trouble too late after the product is built. And so I started a grand experiment of building communities in order to test out, is this possible? How do we game it? How do we guarantee that a product is going to be a success before too much investment and resources are committed to it? So that's why I'm asking the question. And the number one answer, of course, for everyone is we want to increase the product success. 70% of products fail just across the board, across industry. I think it's a 30–70% of failure as well for new product innovation, probably for new startups and small businesses. And generally, the products fail not because it was not a great product, and often not because the product didn't work well, but always because it didn't meet the market needs. They weren't clear who was going to buy this, how much they would be willing to pay. They didn't have enough customers. Always is a blame game that happens when the product doesn't scale or doesn't meet expectations. But for me, it all comes down to they didn't know who the market was, they didn't understand the market, and they built the product before the market. They put the product focus before the market, and they thought what product management was managing the build. For me, product management is getting out in front of the product and creating the environment for product success. So certainly building the wrong product is expensive, and it's disastrous. If you've been on a team that the product failed, it's embarrassing, and you think it's your failure. And if they're playing the blame game, certainly the product manager, being the messenger, is the first one that gets pointed at. So that's why my focus is looking at what is community. Let's talk about community. How do we build community? How do we create a community before we even know what the product is? And how do we let that community define what the product should be? Rather than, if we're talking about a target market, that means that we know what the product is, and we're trying to make assumptions based on who would want this product, based on their current behavior or competitors in the space, none of which is a guarantee that they're going to want or be interested in our product. So another question is, aren't customers more important than community? And by customers, I would mean that as being paying people, people who are already using the product. And the thing is, community is potential customers, and community expands the reach of the product and creates new leads for the product. Whereas customers, they're a bird in hand. You already know them, you already can define them, but they may not be buying new product, and they may not stay with you, and it does take a lot of nurturance and focus to sustain the customers you do have. But the community would be enabling you to build new product. And the focus on community, focus on crowdsourcing, the brilliance of many minds. This wearesmarter.org is all about. They're looking at creativity in community in groups. So by community, I mean a two-way street. Often a customer is a one-way street. You're providing them with the product they're purchasing. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're listening to them or getting their feedback, which you should be as a good product manager. But community, by definition, is a two-way street. And if you are doing community marketing, it requires less money and resources. Instead of pushing out with a marketing message and promotion and pushing out what the message is about the product, you're actually engaging with the community before you know what the proper messaging is. You're listening to them, you're valuing their input, and you're giving them a seat at the table to help build what the product potential is, what the features should be, and getting feedback immediately even before an MVP or a prototype. So if people feel connected to the community, they're going to be more loyal to your company, to you as a professional. They'll be more trusting when you ask them to do things, or even when the product breaks initially, they'll be more forgiving because they have a built-in relationship and they're invested in the product working and being good. Community is also about human beings and not about business transactions. And just with everything going, with everyone having their own devices in the world we live in, even if we are dealing with business-to-business products, who is purchasing, consuming, and using the products are humans. Having a product community or creating a community encourages feedback and enables deeper interactions and better feedback than you would get if it's a customer to company relationship. If you are talking to a person and really concerned about what their needs are, how they're using the product, what their experience is, you're going to get better feedback as well. So Nike, Starbucks, and Google are examples of big brands that really are invested in community marketing. And Google, for example, they put out a product, they make it free, and they let a community grow around it. They really stay out of the picture. They see how people use the product, and then they turn it into revenue making. Case in point is YouTube. They're changing the structure of YouTube. They're getting rid of indie musicians who have gained following using YouTube because they're starting to monetize YouTube. Nike has been out there in front, sponsoring events, all kinds of sports events, and really fostering the whole, athletes. They've been out there sponsoring events from the beginning, but they've also been really responsive and developed new products based on the community. And Starbucks, they know that they're selling a experience more than a product. So they have also been really cognizant of using subtle community creation for location-based, what used to be location-based retail. Apple early on would give very deep discounts. So there were maps placed in schools. And I worked at Apple, and definitely education was a loss leader. It was not generating revenue at the time, but they were very cognizant of the first device that you used would be the device that you would most remember, be fond of, and have the most comfort with. I think, perhaps today that might be different, but I still find that people once with Apple, they stay with Apple. So the idea here is before building the product, find the market. And this is counterintuitive to engineers who have a lot of problem with this because they want to build. If they are a startup founder and if they are concerned with generating revenue and getting investment, they do care about the market, but they'll still decide they know the market or that they are the market, and they'll start building because it's very easy to build a software app, but it still is much better to have a built-in audience for it. And so in order to identify where the community might be and who the market is, find the desire. What is a desire? Are people going to desire your product? No, they don't know what it is. And they probably don't care about your product either, but they do have a desire to do something better, easier, cheaper. Clay Christensen refers to it as the jobs that product do. Discover what people need, the job that they need the product to do, because they don't care about the product, they care about getting that job done. So if you can find a group of people already that are talking about a need for something, and it's in your strengths and capacities to build products, or aligned with what your brand goal or your product portfolio already is, that's what you're looking for. Who has the desire to use a specific product or solve a specific problem? Those are who you want to get to understand more, because they're going to drive your product. They'll be the first users and they'll pay for it. So you need to sense the need in the market, and there's all kinds of ways of doing this. There's all kinds of methods, but I'm talking more about a qualitative experience here than a quantitative. The quantifying will come later, but you cannot touch a community. It shows up within it's framed by an environment, it's framed by a platform, it shows up as a result of an event happening or people communicating. So you need to get a sense of within the area that your product potential will be. How is that market? What's the flavor of it? What kind of people are in it? Where do they congregate? And then Steve Blank in the 4 Steps to the Epiphany, in all of the customer development, is all about what the process is for discovering product market fit and how to get out in front of the product to identify through the scientific method the experiments you need to do to hone in on making sure the product is going to fit the existing market. And so I'm talking about finding that market before you build the product to make it fit. So the first thing that you want to do is identify an addressable community. And by addressable, I mean a community that perhaps is self-identifying and can be reached based on their behavior. And so before the internet, magazines, newspapers, that's what they were, how they sold advertising. They were identifying a community that was interested in specific things. So it still works. What are they reading? What events are they attending? Which social platforms might they be using? What devices? Because if you don't know these basic things, how can you zero in on how you will reach the community to get the feedback you need to build the product and build a product that they want, will use, and will pay for? So this is an ethnographic way to go about it. Again, we're getting qualitative information, and as a product manager or someone who is involved in user experience, customer experience, or the quality of products, you should always have your filters on to be noticing how to frame a community and actions that are happening, how to frame the patterns. When you go out, just notice what are the behaviors, so that you can articulate these types of people who are doing this, who have these needs. Here are the patterns that are showing up. Doing, what do they care about? What are they reading? What devices do they use? What do they frequent? This may be obvious to you. Often it's obvious only when people already have a product in mind, but then that filters their looking. And so the goal here is to go out without prejudgments or presuppositions, get a lot of information and just write it down, take notes before you're going into how addressing it with a product. So go out into the field. Did I skip something? So understand the motivations of those people. How are they behaving? What drives their choices? How do they solve their pain currently?
Jump in right here. We got a question from Lynn, and I'm going to go over to Lynn so that she can read her question.
Hey, Cindy. So I was just wondering if you build personas for these communities.
Hi.
Hi. I was wondering if you build personas when you're doing this community building.
Absolutely. So you're jumping the gun a little bit, and often personas also assume a presumption because we're trying to describe that segment, and communities are much harder to control. We can't control a community of the perfect persona. So the personas come afterwards when we're starting to plan to build the product. Right now we're still in the field trying to determine what is out there, how can we describe it. This information will definitely be the data that will lend itself to not only the personas but the product positioning.
Awesome. That's all the questions we have at the moment. So if other people...
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, she's good.
Yeah, sorry, I keep muting. Sorry.
So that's all. So that's all the questions we have right now. But to those of you who are joining us through the live stream, just questions to Google Moderator at theproductmentor.com/live. Just submit the questions there, and I'll pass them on to Cindy, and we'll get you some more answers. And with that said, Cindy, take it away with the rest of the presentation.
Great. So definitely this is all the information you're collecting. And of course, in an ideal world, you're not going to have time to be doing this without forwarding your product. But as much qualitative, experiential information that you can get before you start committing to paper, the better. And that information will help you further down the road as well when you're iterating on the product. Walk in their shoes, because even if we're observing people, we're still observing them through our filters. And if we're operating as a product person, that's going to limit what we're seeing, because we have an agenda in mind. And the goal here is to try and actually feel their experience from their point of view without having an agenda and without making an assumption, because this is also what creates community and you as a community member, that you're really a part of it, not that you're controlling it. Empathy is a really huge thing. So the design school at Stanford teaches a whole semester, a whole course in design. People pay a lot of money to go to their workshops, their seminars, and it really surprised me. I did the crash course in design thinking that they offer. It really surprised me that they had to teach empathy. And then when I thought about it, people who are involved in technology, involved in STEM, math, science, are on a different side of the brain and are approaching these things from an analytical point of view. People operate on the other side, feelings, emotions, and people's true behaviors, and what drives their true behaviors is not easily analyzed or quantified. So again, it's important to empathize with who the people are that are already in a community or would be the potential community. And then once you have this qualitative data, then start thinking about, could you now communicate this information that you've captured? Do you understand what it is that this self-organized group of people, or however you are identifying the community, what they value, what drives them, why are they showing up to the community, why are they identifying as a community? Could you provide value to the existing community from the current product portfolio or potential idea? And if so, could you reach them in sufficient numbers above all the other things that are coming at them or that they're concerned with? And why will they care about your product? And why will they change their current behavior in order to use your product? If you can do this before you start building the product, you allow this information to inform your product, you have a built-in audience, and the fact that you're spending the time and the effort to get to understand this, you're already building community around the product, even without any formal parameters. It is important to know when you are starting to talk about a product or an idea or getting qualitative feedback. Again, I'm not talking about formal surveying, and I'm not talking about formal feedback groups yet, but it is important to get the story straight and get it very simple. One thing about the product or the product idea or the solution, and then have everyone on your team be talking about it, but the more you can articulate succinctly what the intention of the product is, the more able the community will be able to grab onto it, start thinking about it themselves, and start talking about it and helping you create it. So ideally a one-sentence summary, but again, it doesn't even have to be about a product. It could be just identifying the product pain. And if you can use the same language both internally with your team and externally, you'll get a lot of great not only feedback, but already people are starting to invest in the idea. So why should they believe that you will be able to deliver, or why should they get on your bandwagon with this product idea or product potential? Because you're reflecting back to them everything you've learned from what concerns them. And you're using their words, you're putting it in their language of pain, and you're putting it in the context of their community that already exists. And again, I just want to underline that by community, I don't necessarily mean, excuse me, look, it could be a digital community. We're a community. It could be a community of knowledge, people who care about the same knowledge, people who have read the same book, people who buy the same shoes, have the same kind of disease, or identify in the same way. So it's really, you are going to define the community. But definitely be focused on their WIIFM and know that everyone is walking around thinking, what's in it for me? They really don't care about your product. They care about what are they going to get, how will they benefit, and what will the value be to them. Otherwise, they really don't have time, no matter how nice you are or how much you've been invested. So now that you know where your community is, you have a simple way to articulate what the product intention is or what one problem you're going to solve. Now you can start getting proactive And again, we're not necessarily, this might be happening in parallel with a product starting to being planned and built. And this is also should come before your launch plan, to develop key relationships within this community. You want to develop the key relationships to create these relationships for trust, believability, and have product champions. These will be your future evangelists. But again, they care less about your product. You're caring about them, and they will reward you when you deliver something that makes a difference to them. So the easiest, the low-hanging fruit are current community stars, the bloggers, the thought leaders, the authors, the innovators, the practitioners, the people who are communicating, already have an audience, or already care about a certain issue. And I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. Let me go back. Okay, so those people exist. You can find them on Twitter, you can find them on Facebook. All of the social media platforms now are showcasing them. LinkedIn, Medium, they put out a lot of noise, a lot of content. And even within small niche communities and forums, usually I think it's 1% of the population will be the most active, the most participants, and providing the most contribution to the community. So find those people. And then give them a platform to be heard within your community. I think for someone to be told that their issues are important to a company and that the company cares about building a product specifically to solve their problems, that is great, but you have to follow through and really be receptive and listen to them, not only over the things you like that they're saying, but the things that you don't like. Because the people who are complaining, your competitors' products, your competitors' audience, users, the people who give you negative feedback are actually giving you a gift. Because generally, when you are interacting with people, people tend to be polite and don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, I find. So if you really want good information, you want to make it safe for people to tell you the truth. And then invest in creating future stars. Perhaps these are people who really will be your best users who really care, but they're not yet known, or they're not promoters. They're not natural promoters. They're not promoting themselves. So you can recognize them, again, even before the product is built, by mentioning them in a blog post, putting them in an email and copying them. Again, all qualitative information. Further on the road, you can build in ways to gamify creating future stars inside the product. You can actually embed this into the product, providing stickers, badges. These are marketing ploys, but even before you build the product, just thanking people publicly with a tweet, emailing them and copying that email to someone in authority, as well as sending a printed thank you. If you can believe it, it is still done, and it is so rare, it makes a huge difference. And those people become your advocates, your evangelists, that you took the time and sent a stamp to send them something in the mail. And then outside of your direct community, in surrounding communities, parallel communities, there will be the loudmouths, there will be the early adopters, there are the people creating their own communities for their own agendas. These are people you want to be friendly with as well, because they can forward your product when you're ready to launch, and they can give you good feedback if they are loudmouths, and if they are self-promoters, that they're saying things not essentially to create value, but to forward their own standing. That's okay. They're still valuable, and they still make a difference. So you want to get inside those conversations that they are already having. And you can find them again on Google Hangouts, on just by following them, because they're always promoting themselves. If they are talking about a key issue that your product idea or product intention touches, then you can actually engage with them, become part of the conversation, join in the forum. Those people who may be have the biggest, making what appears to be the biggest noise, they also will have a lot of contribution to make, to blow their own horns, but it's still great feedback. And you know, especially if they want to show off how knowledgeable they are, they will be interested in being knowledgeable about your product at all. There is a company called Buffer app. It's a scheduling of social media. You can schedule tweets, you can schedule posts. They built their whole entire company based on content marketing. And this is really from their game plan, produce or even borrow compelling content. And you can borrow compelling content by curating and resharing and giving credit to the original authors and forwarding their message. That creates a need in the marketplace. Again, you already know what the need is from tapping into a community, and also by putting, I call it like a picket fence around the community. The community that you have tapped into may not self-identify as a community, so product marketers will frame the community in order to position the product appropriately. All of this will enable you to launch a product from the get-go that fills the need. And then you can do a pre-launch. You can have all of these people be beta testers. That, again, engenders them to being concerned with the product's success. And you can tap into the community that we've already built relationships with that have contributed to defining the product. In order to create compelling content.
So, Cindy, we just have another question that just came in. Comes from Mike in New York. And so it's a little long, so let me just give me a moment to read it. Mike says, it would be interesting to hear about an example where this was successfully employed in a B2B product. What specific tactics were employed? What worked and what didn't work?
So Buffer app, if you go read their blog, it's BUFFERAPP, and they talk all about it. And so also there's a huge community of growth hackers, and that's what they're talking about. So early on at LinkedIn, they did this as well. They went out to the people who they identified as most needing their products, who were the HR people, and they built the product for them, and they brought them on board. They had customer advisory boards where they were actually brought in to have qualitative discussions with the product team, as well as they went out and watched people at their offices using the current tools they were using in order to build the product that met their needs. So hit me up afterwards for a specific. I have a list of examples. Content marketing is very big, and I also have a presentation about lean content marketing, which is all about the details and the steps of how do you build the appropriate content that builds a community to drive your product.
Awesome.
So,
and we've got another question, this time from Lynn. So Lynn, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Go ahead.
Hi. So I was going back to communities. I mean, the way you're describing it, I'm imagining that you have, you're building something, you're giving them a forum, there's a platform. What I've run into, like I've seen the value in that for my product, but it requires a lot of care and watering, and that's like a resource that I have to figure out. So does it work long term, or should I be trying to do it long term, and if yes, who usually owns it?
Great question. And by the way, really I'm drawing upon my own direct experience building the startup product community, which there's now 18 communities, and I'm constantly experimenting with it and constantly using all of these procedures, because I don't want to talk about something that I don't have direct knowledge of, because that also enhances my ability to help other people. So yes, to your point, there is a profession called Community Experience Manager as well as Community Manager. And what they used to be were just people who managed the digital forums, and now they've become people who manage the product experience at all of the customer touch points, and they are charged with creating community from people who aren't yet using the product. Also used to be called at Apple was evangelism. The evangelists went to the trade shows, went to the competing developer communities, didn't have direct product. I was always jealous of them because they didn't have deliverables, but they were kind of the spokesperson for the brand, and they brought back very important feedback, and they would be involved in the launch and everything else. But they, so again, going back to Lynn, yes, it takes constant nurturing. It does take, to do product right, like anything else of this, to do content right, to do product marketing right. It can't be done once. In community, in order for it to grow and to be the powerful feedback mechanism and to have it grow itself, it does require nurturing and constant acknowledgement and feeding. Ideally, what the big brands do is they enable the community to be self-directive, so that they get out of the way and let the community start talking amongst themselves about things that they like and don't like about the brand or about the product. That's very valuable feedback as well. And again, that's what developer communities do. And so the goal is to give power and empower those people who are the spokesperson, who care the most, and feed them and with acknowledgement in whatever way that you can. Let them know that their feedback is important, and encourage them to create whatever communities, sub-communities, or whatever, because that is where the wisdom of the crowd comes in and will give ongoing value as you continue to iterate the product. So I apologize, I'm being very general.
Cool. I think that was a great answer.
Yeah. So that kind of.
I'm gonna hand it back to you, Cindy, to kind of jump back into continue the talk where you left off. And for everyone else,
okay.
Again, if you have a question you'd like to pose to Cindy about this topic or even product management in general, which I'll save the general stuff until the end of the talk, feel free to post, and you can post it to the Google Moderator channel at theproductmentor.com/live. And with that said, back to you, Cindy.
So in this talk, I'm not going very deep into the tools. There's a myriad of tools. That really touches into growth hacking, which is another conversation. But definitely, if you want to get in touch with me offline, I will share in depth the tools that I use and the growth hacking that I do on different platforms that are built to create community, but not necessarily built to provide product feedback. And so there's ways of hacking other people's platforms to get the kind of feedback that you need. Always be human, because communities are made of humans, and recognize that you are the spokesperson, or you are seen in the community eyes as the expert for the product. Certainly if you are a product marketing manager, or if you are serving this role and are able to go out into the market and get this qualitative feedback, then you do want to be human, and you need to represent not only the community, the external community, but you need to then translate their needs, their context-sensitive information into a way that internal departments and your internal stakeholders can appreciate. You do have to get this down into, okay, what are the features? How should we build the prototype? And how to build the roadmaps to reach this audience, and also so you can be building high fidelity prototypes so you can take it right back out to the community and get immediate feedback. For using content, medium.com actually was built in response to people who wanted a blog but didn't want to maintain a blog. They have built and they continue to iterate in direct response to a community of people who were opinionated but didn't have a design sense. They created a beautiful way to blog without having to worry about design. Use it. They bring audience. So a very quick and dirty, write something, post it on Medium, take the URL and share it on Scoop It. And behind here is a hyperlink to my Scoop It community, so you can go see, you can build and curate other people's content on Scoop It without taking their credit away. You're not taking away anyone's copywriting, but essentially Scoop It is creating the opportunity in a community based around interests and knowledge, which I really appreciate. And they continue to iterate. Hiten Shah built Kismetrics, Crazy Egg. He talks a lot about growth hacking. He's very much revered here in the Valley. So his secret to building community is just be all around nice guy. And honestly and authentically, be nice. Now, will everyone like you? Doubtful, but everyone seems to like Hiten Shah. I very rarely, or I don't know. I haven't looked to see who's disagreeing with him, but that's his first foot forward. Be a nice guy. And certainly if you're reaching out to a community to help them solve a pain, that's being nice. Then build a product that everyone likes. How do you do that? Well, you build it in response to the feedback that you've gotten, again, before you built it. And then market the product before you build it. Create the market, the desire, the need, the want, which you can do through developing content, through talking about it, and through creating the atmosphere for this product to come into being. And so Biz Stone of Twitter says, look, all of the things that we hear about that went viral overnight, and before we started, Jeremy was talking about one. Sure, maybe they became viral, but did they generate money? Were they around for the long term? And really, to create a community and sustain it over time, we're not talking about going viral. We're talking about building a market that will grow for your product in the long term. Because generally when we're launching products, it's not a one-off thing. Even if the feature is a product, we want that to grow into a revenue-generating, long-tail effort. So he says, timing, perseverance, and 10 years of trying will eventually make you look like an overnight success. And often stars talk about this as well, people that hit it big. We only heard about them yesterday, but it took them 10 years to be heard of. So, you know, this is actually something that I implement on a regular basis. This experiment for me, finding community and creating community, responding to it, started with a tweet. I put out a tweet a couple of years ago after I went to, I think, my first product camp. So, wow, no, it was after a couple of product camps. That I said, hey, it would be so cool if we could take the product camp idea of experts sharing and talking in together, if we could digitize that in an open platform. So my tweet was, hey, wouldn't it be great if we got product managers together on Twitter and try out this thing called Twitter chat? Well, so that was, I guess, 4 years ago. So I've done over 120 Twitter chats. That led to the Global Product Management Talk broadcast, which gets up to 30,000 listens per episode, which is now available on iTunes. I use Blog Talk Radio, yet another platform that does promotion for me and reaches out to communities that I don't know about that would be interested in product management issues. And the community continues to grow, as I said. This was the original mission for the Global Product Management Talk, which was really to create a community, a worldwide community of product professionals. And I met Jeremy through that mission, and Jeremy as well has been a speaker. And this is, I shared with Jeremy a full page of resources. Both of these, Chrisia was a person who blew my mind when he first told me, you know, find the market first before you build the product. It doesn't matter what anyone else says. If you really want to be successful, have a built-in market for the product. Sean Moffat put together over 100 slides talking about how brands use community, and that's where you'll see examples from the big names, from the Cokes, the McDonald's, and all the different tactics. Now, they certainly have a lot of money to put behind these efforts, and my focus here was how do you do it when you don't have resources and you don't have a person or a team devoted to it. And even if you can't devote full time to it, at the very least, I wanted to raise your awareness and pique your consciousness so you can start thinking in this manner. And I definitely am responsive to all of the product people that attend events and really forward my thought leadership, if you will, in how to create great product leaders and great products. So here's more information. Hook up with me in LinkedIn. I definitely share generously. I overshare, and as you can see, I am text-based because I'm old school, and I didn't talk about, you know, designing the product or communicating it in a way that is engaging. That's a whole other talk. But I just did want to get your feedback and start more conversations happening around how do we create a market for the product and let the market inform our product creation. And I know that as product managers, we're brought in to forward a product that already exists, but we can still use these tactics to expand that the awareness of the product and the next features and iterations. So, okay. So I'm going to come back in, and that was
great.
my slide.
And for everyone else, as always, the presentation from Cindy will be posted to our SlideShare channel as well. And again, thank you to our speaker, Cindy Solomon, founder of Startup Product Academy, and many other things that she has listed for you for today's discussion on creating a community for product unknown. And a big thank you from me, Jeremy Horn, the product guy, and to everyone else who joined us today in the room, as well as through the productmentor.com/live, or other ways if you are consuming this in other ways. And don't forget, if you're interested in being a product mentor like Cindy, to product people of all sorts from all around the world, please visit theproductmentor.com and sign up today. And also, if you're looking for a product person, or if you got a product job to fill, or if you're looking to fill a product job, please visit our very own, and it's free for everyone, job board at theproductjobs.com. And with that said, that's the end of this talk, and I'll see everyone next time. Bye.